dive into the chilling world of the Dogman, a creature that blurs the lines between man and beast. A favorite creepypasta topic. Dogman encounters have been reported for many years in North America. Witnesses still say you can hear their strange howls, and some have even claimed to see the Dogman recently. Let's explore some of the terrifying Dogman encounters today. The first encounter I can remember was when I was young. My parents had set me to bed with orders not to get out of the room, so I used to gaze out the window. It wasn't totally dark yet, and I remember watching something move through the trees just out of clear sight. It passed a spot in the brush that wasn't as thick, and I just got a quick glimpse of it, but it was enough. It couldn't have been anything else. It had a long snout like a dog, black fur, and its face was sort of human, but with more fur. I think it saw me sit up near the window, which made it run. I ran out of my room crying because I didn't understand. My parents had a hard time calming me down. My brother saw it a few years later too, and the description was about the same. He's an honest person, and it bothered him. The next time my dad and I were out fishing. I was older then, but not yet out of high school. We were setting lines as we normally did. We baited the hooks with frozen fish that we'd caught earlier, maybe the week before. As we sat on the shore, we realized we had forgotten the jugs in the truck. It was a two-person job grabbing all those, so we left the lines and bait there on the bank. We couldn't have been gone for long. Maybe 5 minutes, but all that bait was gone. In the mud, we could clearly see what looked like a human sort of print, but the ends of the feet had claws. It was plain as day. Not only that, but we could hear something big moving back in those woods. I think my dad started believing us then. A couple of other local guys also saw something out there too. The last time I saw something similar was at night. I was coming back from an event that was in town. Earlier on my way there, I had noticed a deer had gotten hit and was dead on the side of the road. Around that same area, I saw what looked like the same creature, except this time it was on all fours. It picked up onto two, though, as it cleared a fence into some brush. I think it had found that roadkill I saw earlier, and I spooked it with the truck lights and noise. That was the last time I ever saw anything. For the record, I used to be a tracker and an animal control specialist for the city I worked for. I know the animals really well in the area. Plus, I live on my own place outside of town a pretty good ways. My girlfriend and I were the only ones that lived out there for a while. Other than the hunters that would come out during the season, it was always really quiet out there. We started getting complaints of wild dogs that were very aggressive. There supposedly was a pack of them, and they were causing trouble for a few of the local ranchers. Livestock started going missing, and the family pets were constantly agitated by something that came around at night. One of these things even broke into a chicken enclosure. One of the ranchers pulled me aside one day while I was scouting for the pack. He mentioned that his dogs had gotten scared of going outside at night. They were even avoiding the windows, which he'd never seen them do. It was very unusual. He invited me to come stay with him so that I didn't have to drive back and forth so much. I wanted to set some traps first thing in the morning, and I'd known the man for a long time, so I accepted. I called my girlfriend and explained what was going on. That That evening, we sat on the patio, and he told me a few stories he'd heard from the other ranchers. They'd been finding weird tracks in the fields. There was always a bit of livestock predation, but what they were experiencing was unprecedented. Another rancher had seen something he couldn't explain crossing the road, yet no one seemed to want to go into too much detail, worrying that others might think they were crazy. I wasn't buying into it too much. We went inside and turned on the TV. We'd been watching a baseball game for a while and just catching up on talk when the dogs started growling. They were looking at the back window with their fur standing up on their backs. We stood up to see what was the matter, and that's when I saw what they were uneasy about. There was something out in the yard. I wanted to say it was a human, but the face wasn't right, but it was on two legs. Its eyes glowed yellow from the light of the house, and its face looked like that of a wolf, but this was no wolf I'd ever seen. It turned its head, and I clearly saw a long nose, and the face wasn't fully covered in hair. The arms were really long. We both moved to get a better look, and when we did, it went down on all fours and ran. We stayed in the house that night. The next morning, we got out to see if any tracks were there. We didn't find anything clear, but there were impressions in the yard where something heavy had stood. I would guess the thing stood about 6 feet tall from what we could recreate. I called in another wildlife control friend, and we set out everything we could think of with no luck. The issue stopped soon after we had the sighting. I don't know if it moved on or people just stopped talking about it. To this day, I've never seen anything so creepy. I don't want my name out on the internet with this story. I live out in Colorado, on some land that has river frontage. We have lots of animals that pass through the property, but something walks that river that I can't explain. It leaves large footprints that seem to only have 3 toes. There's a local guy that writes about cryptids and stuff in Colorado. I reached out to him about the tracks. He came to research them one day and took a plaster cast of one. It was a strange track. He asked me to put some game cameras up to see if I could capture anything. I haven't caught exactly whatever is out there, but we do have some photos that don't seem to fit what the normal wildlife is. I did see some sort of hybrid animal by the river one day, though. It was black, and the fur covered most of the body. It was crouched down, but not completely on 4 legs, and it seemed angry that I was there. I think it may be dangerous, so I don't go to that side of the property without someone with me anymore. My neighbor has had similar experiences. She lost one of her dogs, and whatever killed it just left it there. My grandfather and I were coming back from a doctor's appointment one evening. It was getting late, and we were singing old country songs together as we drove back home. On that highway, there's this long curve that the road takes as it pushed away from a mountain. As we started to go around that curve, we saw a large animal crossing the road with what looked like a smaller animal in its mouth. My grandfather slowed down, trying to get a better look at the creature. We got about 30 to 40 yards from it when he turned on the brights. As he did, the creature turned to look at us, and the next moment, it jumped up on 2 feet and leapt up the side of the mountain. It disappeared from sight, and Grandpa sped away from where we saw it. He looked shaken and almost like he was in shock. The sheer bulk of the animal was incredible. It was built like a bodybuilder and had clearly raised its arms in order to climb its way up the mountain. No wolf could do that. I didn't get a good look at the face, just the side profile, but its eyes had shined yellow from the car lights. It had long, thick fur, but you could still see the muscles underneath. Even being as big as it was, it had moved extremely quickly. I don't know what it was, but the closest thing I can describe was a werewolf or a dogman. I don't really want to call it either of those names, but nothing else matches what this thing looked like. I haven't seen anything like that since, but that is more than okay with me. I've always loved the tranquility of small towns. I often walk my dog around town and on the outskirts of ours. There's a particular trail skirting the edge of the woods that we've walked countless times. It's well maintained and peaceful. When I had my encounter, the sun was beginning to set, and I remember there weren't a lot of people out that evening, so the trail felt a little different. My dog, Ricky, was tense and on alert, which was not how he normally acted. As we approached our usual turnaround spot, we heard a howl in the woods off to our right. It wasn't a coyote. This was different, more guttural and resonant. We don't have wolves in our area, so I was confused. Ricky was acting like he was terrified. He stood right next to me, and his eyes were darting around. As I looked into the woods, I caught a glimpse of what looked like a large, dark figure. It stood upright on two legs, but it was partially blocked by a pair of large trees. It seemed to be watching us, which made me really nervous. The creature let out another howl, this time obviously directed towards us. Ricky growled, hairs raised in response. I had never seen him act like that, but as suddenly as it appeared, it turned and swiftly moved away, vanishing deeper into the woods on two legs. The head clearly had a dog-like shape to it. Heart pounding, I clutched Ricky's leash tighter and made a beeline for home, trying to shake off the fear. I've heard legends and tales of strange creatures in these parts, but never did I think I'd actually see the fabled Dogman. I always just thought it was a story just to scare the kids, but I don't know anymore. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more Dogman encounters and scary stories like these weekly.